Welcome to Herbally Yours, an adventure into the world of natural medicine. Here is your host, Dr. Kamhi, the natural nurse who will help you take the leap to ultimate wellness.
Greetings, and thank you for joining me, Kamhi, the natural nurse, for another edition of Herbally Yours, right here on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Listen on air or online at iHeartRadio, Odyssey, TuneIn app, smart speakers, or nccradio.org, or download the WHPC app. And podcasts of the show are also available wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple, Google Play, and Spreaker. Herbally Yours brings you the latest information about the many facets in the world of natural living. Today, my guest is Melanie, or Mel, Salvatore-August. And Mel is a veteran yoga meditation teacher, trainer, and author. She is a classically trained actor and comedy theater writer-producer, and she is the founder of Fierce Kindness Organization and MELwell Virtual Studios, where she offers YogaWorks-at-Home. Mel has authored several books, including Fierce Kindness, Be a Positive Force for Change, and Yoga to Support Immunity, a mind-body breathing guide to whole health contact. So thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me, Helen. I appreciate it.
Now, let's talk about your latest book. That's going to be the focus, but let's go back in time. And why did you become an actor and a comedy theater person to begin with?
Right. That's the question. Like maybe many friends, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go to school, but I liked making people laugh. And that was as a kid, how I kind of got through the world is those side conversations that just made people break up. So I went to acting school, and I loved playing, and I loved learning about just the human condition, because that's really, when we're looking at art, that's what we're really looking at, the human condition. When we look at comedy, that's what we're looking at, right? When we laugh, it's like, oh God, that's so true, right? You just nailed it. And my heart has always been very tender, right? And I've always been interested in being a helper. And as I went through that road, the more I went through it, I was like, this is great. And the business of that is not exactly tender. And so my tender heart started to see like, okay, well, maybe this isn't my calling. This is a really great journey along the way. And I think it's going to help me help other people. And I'm ready to go to a more heart-centered space, which ended up for me being yoga was the gateway into that, and meditation, and just helping people kind of feel better. That's where it brought me.
And that's where comedy brought you. One thing that's challenging, I think, in comedy today is with, what I consider the oversensitivity of reaction to things that we say about each other. It's kind of killed comedy.
Sure. Yeah. And I think back, because it's been it's been a solid 15 years since I was in the clubs in any way. And I think back and I'm like, wow, none of that would fly now, which I considered mild at the time, but none of that material. Really
to bring together your specialties of comedy and yoga, did you ever hear of a comedian and his name was Beyond Ananda? You should really look him up. His stuff was brilliant. He did clubs all around the country, which I always went to, and his name was Beyond Ananda. Yogi Beyond Ananda. Now, you would probably see, you're laughing just hearing the words. And you would even more so, because what he did was took the content that I know as a highly trained yoga instructor, you're completely familiar with, and the whole community of yoga people, especially think back. I mean, I started in this field. My first yoga lesson was in 1964. So if we go back in time, a more, let's say, limited type of people were involved in yoga than would be now. And his comedy completely went after, and I will say us, meaning me and other people involved in yoga and the related lifestyle issues way back when. So you would just love his presentation.
I am totally on it.
Yeah. So now, not only that, but you did move into yoga and other natural lifestyle practices. And you have one book called Fierce Kindness, Be a Positive Force for Change. That's a beautiful name for a book.
Thank you.
And then the one we'll be talking about today, Yoga to Support Immunity. When did that book come out?
Yoga to Support Immunity came out the mid of 21. So we were in the pandemic.
Yes, that's perfect. So I bet that was really great because people were searching and they knew that buzzword, immunity.
For sure.
So that would bring it up. And what a wonderful way to address really supporting your native immunity.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, it's what we do every day, right? I know, Ellen, it's what we do every day. It's how we move. It's how we think. It's how we think every day. It's how we breathe, because how we think is going to affect how we move and how we breathe and what choices we make in our food. And so it's big things, but really it's the little tiny things within the everyday that makes a huge impact. And I've really seen that, I've been healing from an autoimmune disease. So that was kind of my, it's like how with 3 kids and all, not feeling well, how did I shift things around for myself? And it was a lot of those micro habits, which I share in the book.
Oh, I like that word, micro habits. So it's things that people sort of, do all the time. Like, let's say, get up in the morning and have a bagel. That's a really bad way to start the day. And yet thousands of people do.
And it's all the steps up from like, you opened your eyes till you munched on that bagel. And there are tons of little habits that most of us do without thinking. And so that's also where we're going. Is like, okay, you're like, well, I didn't do anything. I just got up and I ate a bagel. It's like, no, you did a bunch of things in there. You probably went to use the bathroom. What rooms do you walk in like clockwork from when you step out of the bed? All of those different things.
So that's a beautiful start to our discussion here. What would you say would be some changes to that, even that mini early morning routine that might make a positive change in our immune system?
Well, maybe not popular for my friends who have their phone on them all the time. It's that aspect of right in the beginning of the morning, right before you even get out of bed, keeping your nervous system at a relaxed and intentional space. So, the thought of, waking up to an alarm and picking up your phone and then immediately going to your email and scrolling, that in itself is very harsh for the nervous system. And we're literally taking on everything that other people are telling us is important, right? Even like the buy a Gap, whatever it is, like whatever is coming through our email. And so that aspect of just holding the very few minutes when you just open your eyes. I love the word liminal thinking. It's limitless in those first moments of waking up, right? And to take that time, whether you call it deep breathing and meditation, whether you call it prayer, whether you call it counting gratitudes, but to just shift your mind into a place of possibility and of intentional thinking and of love, honestly. That releases chemicals in the brain and in the body that's going to boost your immune system, right? Oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine, endorphins, just by taking the first few minutes of your very beginning morning and making them intentional in a loving way or in a positive, forward possibility way.
So that's a good way to start the day. So I have found when you're telling someone to do that, it might be a good idea for them to actually have written down or thought about ahead of time what I would call a replacement thought. So when they wake up and their first thing is to grab the phone, or their first thing is to worry about, really, oh my God, I have to get the kids to school. If you're in that phase of life, I'm long past that. But you then stop yourself and actually put in that thought that you want to have, which you know will be more supportive to your immune system and overall health.
I love that, Ellen. Absolutely, 100%. Redirecting and having it ready. For me, the easy go-to is a gratitude, and just to start to count your blessings. So I love that, before you go to sleep, having, and writing, that's such a wonderful way. You put your mind through your heart and then through your hand, and you're already kind of doing it, right? Just by writing it down, you're kind of like rehearsing or practicing. Then it'll come easier to you, right? The first time we do anything, it's the hardest. And then once we've done it once, it's much easier, and it gets easier and easier. So I absolutely love that. And that makes me think of what the yogis call as mantra, right? So it's like, okay, I'm going to redirect my mind, whether it's English gratitude or like a Sanskrit mantra, into peace.
So that's nice. Now, what were you saying about a mantra? Now, you threw that word out as if, you know that I know what it means, but how about not everyone in our audience may not know what it means? So what is the mantra?
Exactly, Ellen. And, that aspect too is sometimes that word gets thrown around and we're like, yeah, I know what a mantra is, but they're like, what is a mantra? In the Sanskrit, and again, I know you do know this, but mantra, man, from my understanding, is mind, right? And tra means to weave or direct or thread. And so we are literally taking something intentional, like a vitamin, like a mental, emotional vitamin, and we are processing it through the mind. So, our kind of chatty mind can go anywhere, at least mine can. It can go multiple different topics that are unhelpful at any given time. So like a toddler, right? I always had, I have 3 little boys. They're not so little anymore, but I always have a Matchbox car for them in my purse, because whenever we went anywhere, I was like, oh my gosh, they're climbing the walls. I need to redirect them and have them play with this car. And that will give me an extra couple minutes or 30 seconds or whatever. So it's the same thing with the mind. The mind's going to start to go all over the place. So we just need to redirect it, give it that Matchbox car, which is that gratitude or that something to focus on, to lead it where our heart wants it to go, or the big self wants it to go. We got a little self. It's always, I need to go to Trader Joe's or whatever, organizing and worried. And then we got that bigger self.
Yeah, that's a really, nice way to put it. So what did you do in terms of putting together this studio that you have? What does that mean?
Well, I feel incredibly blessed. What I would say is the more that I followed my heart, and I know that can sound cliche, but the more I listen to that deeper space within myself, that whisper that'd be like, it's better over here for you, or be more of service, or think more of how to be a helper in the world versus, the survival of every day. And as my life started to change, as my mindset started to change, and I became happier in that way, opportunities start coming. Right. And I was really amazed by that. And one of them is the studio I'm actually sitting in right now, where the right people at the right time came together. And within the last year, not even a year and a half, Ellen, this whole studio was built, and it's on a piece of land that is in Northern California, and it's connected near my home. So it's a very difficult commute. I go out my front door, I walk through a slate walkway, and then I walk into the yoga studio, which is, full size and amazing. At the same time, I've been online with it. So, I can bring people here into the homestead, and they can come virtually, which, is our world now.
So you can have it both ways. So
I have it both ways.
That's really excellent. So MELwell Virtual Studios is also a real studio.
Yeah, I used to say, this is my homestead. And now I call it my homestead,
Oh, that's a great word. That's from your comedian days.
Yeah, right? Right, exactly.
Well, the book is really beautifully laid out. What was your idea when you talk about, let's say, an asana or asana for clarity?
No, my inspiration, and this might be too far into the esoteric in a way, but my inspiration was my life force, prana, and a kind of categorization of prana, that we have prana that comes in, and then we also have an energy that moves out, and then circulating energy, and just a process which is called the pranic vayus, if you study that kind of energy, which I'm fascinated by. So the book is laid out around how we take in, and then how we eliminate, as the second section is on detoxification, and then how we integrate to move forward skillfully in life. So clarification is, if you want to get somewhere, you kind of need to know what you want. I want to get somewhere. I don't know where I want to get. And it's like putting that address in the GPS. So it's an exploration of what's happening mentally. There's a whole section on kind of inquiries and places for you to do, you as in my friend, to do self-study. What is it that I really want? What are my daily habits? Get clear. These habits, these micro habits, what I might not even have thought about before, like how I step out of my bed, or what's the first thing I drink in the morning, which is also very important. How are they getting me either towards what I truly want in my heart, or how are they taking me away from it? So clarification on mental, and also then how do we start to get energy moving in the body, right? How do we fortify our spine and get our breath going, because our breath is circulating everything in the body? How do we oxygenate our cells, that kind of thing? And we go from there.
Well, let's remind our listeners that you are listening to Herbally Yours on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Listen live or online at nccradio.org, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. And for information on today's guest or topic, send us an email at whpc@ncc.edu. And you can also get in touch with me, Ellen Kamhi, at naturalnurse.com. And you are listening to Herbal Yours on the voice of Nassau Community College. So thank you so much for being our guest. Our guest today is Melanie, Mel Salvatore-August, and we're talking about her latest book, which is called Yoga to Support Immunity, a Mind-Body Breathing Guide to Whole Health Contact. What do you mean by a mind-body breathing guide?
So it's that aspect of really, the mind is going to determine our experience, right? And I love this aspect. My kids said it to me at an early age. I've changed my mind. I was like, wow, that's great. So we can change our mind, and our mind can either guide us towards more discomfort and more trouble, or our mind can help us find the possibility. And so we start there with, how are you thinking? What are you telling yourself over and over again? Is it helpful? Is it complete? Right? Oftentimes, when we say, there's no hope, or I've tried it once before, it's never going to happen again. Whatever the mind is doing, it's very incomplete. So to look at the mind and in a very practical way, like how are you talking to yourself, and how do we help you? And then the aspect of the mind and its choices on habits. How do habits work, right? How do I break a habit? How do I start a new habit? And look at the step-by-step science behind that, and then, use cognitive function to make that happen.
So what is the step-by-step science behind that?
Step-by-step science. Well, oftentimes when we have a habit, it's become automated, and we're no longer thinking about it. So the mind tries to, and the body tries to make our system as efficient as possible. right? Including our thinking. So anything that it can make automated, it will. And there's also that fascinating talking about liminal thinking, this limitless thinking. We have certain amount of hours, hopefully, in the morning. I don't know if I have hours. I may have minutes where you have very clear, kind of effective, powerful thinking going on. And then we kind of move into what is like the reserve, energy mentally, which is one of the reasons, side note, that we want to protect our morning and the things that you really care about. I just would love to support friends. Do in the morning, make your first priority, and then everything after you can do what's your have to's, right? There's usually a trigger. There's usually some sort of desire or trigger or need. And then we hit this moment where we have the need, and then we choose something and it's a reward. So trigger and reward. So from my understanding, we can't actually break a habit, right? So once we have that connection in the brain and we've made that automation, it's there. What we can do is we can rewire and do a new habit and make that new habit so fortified, right? So delightful, right? That we never go back to that other habit. And part of it is recognizing, okay, I do this and I automatically do that. I have this trigger. So when I walk into my bathroom, I do this, right? And there's a lot of great habits, like, if we talk about using the bathroom, use the bathroom, wash your hands. Don't even think about that, many of us, right? So we have lots of those. So it's consciously creating a habit around something you already do. That's a wonderful way to create a new habit, right? So I often go, all right, I always go to the bathroom first, and I always, like clockwork, so boring, I go to the kitchen. And in that go to the bathroom, go to the kitchen first thing in the morning, I have all my micro habits laid out in the kitchen in easy view. So I scrape my tongue in the morning, which I'm happy to talk about. And then
let's stop right there, because that's something that I have. And now you can buy a tongue scraper on Amazon for almost zero money. I mean, really cheap, because you used to have to go to an Ayurvedic store 30 years ago. They were not widely available. So some people may not even have heard of that. What do you mean by tongue scraping?
Oh, I'm so glad you do it.
How could someone do that?
So, right, when your liver, your body is processing and ideally trying to clear out toxins overnight. So when your digestive system is resting, right, and you may notice that on top of the tongue is like this mimic and model of the rest of the body. It's fascinating how unified the body is. And toxins will start to kind of build to be cleared on the layer of the tongue, which when you scrape it, it's a little gross. It's a little white. It's a little gray. You're like, wow, there's a lot of toxins, right? And so before you drink your water, and I really want to urge all of our friends, don't go right to your coffee. Drink 16 ounces of water, at least 8, right? First thing in the morning, right after you scrape your tongue. And if you don't have a tongue scraper, just use a big spoon, right? You go to the very back of the tongue. It may make you kind of have a little gag reflex. It's okay, actually. It's actually good. And then scrape to the front. You're going to take off all the, bacteria and, things that are coming out of your system. You wash off that spoon or that tongue scraper, and then you go fully up to 7 times from the back to the front. And it's amazing because there are areas of your tongue that coincide with internal organs. It's fascinating. The very back of the tongue is the colon, and then the center is the small intestine, and then a little bit forward is the stomach, all the way forward is the heart, the sides are the lungs. So you're going to get the whole tongue, and also stimulate your digestion, get your metabolism going. So it's super great practice. Do it before you drink your water and then your coffee.
So what this tongue scraper looks like, if you do purchase one, and you can, like I said, unless you have one to recommend, there's quite a few really fine ones right on Amazon. And it looks like a half a circle, and so that you can hold your hand on the 2 ends, and then you put that scraper, as Mel described, to the back of the throat. You don't have to put it so far back that you gag. You can just go to the back of your tongue, and you very slowly brush up, and you'd be amazed at how much, stuff you don't want comes off, because our tongues have little, I don't know what you would call them, fibrils kind of. And, that's not just totally smooth. So under those ridges, food gets caught and mucus gets caught, and it's great to clean it out. I mean, it feels really, really good as well.
Fantastic. And, the benefits are far reaching, from boosting your immune system to helping, breath and gum health, which we know what we do here in the mouth is going to affect our whole body. And also waking up your metabolism, which I know, many friends are like, oh, that's a great idea. I want to wake up my metabolism. Sure. Me too.
So how could getting a copy of your book, Yoga to Support Immunity, and I know many, many people got it, and it's great that it came out at the time when people were dealing with a specific issue, which was our whole COVID pandemic. So that word supporting immune really came to the forefront.
And I feel like it's ongoing, right? Whether it's COVID, whether it's the flu, whether it's just aging, right? Now, how do we work with our own system in a very mindful, loving, micro habit way? This is little tiny things that anyone can incorporate. Anyone at any age, right? Even kids can incorporate to help be more mindful, more intentional, and feel better and be stronger. And you can get the book anywhere, anywhere books are sold, bookshop, Amazon, Target, Walmart, like it's everywhere, which is appreciate. And it's also on Kindle. So easy. You just download it.
Well, I want to thank you so much for being our guest today. We've been talking about wonderful book, Yoga to Support Immunity, Mind, Body, Breathing Guide to Whole Health. And we're talking with author Melanie Salvatore-August. And she also runs a beautiful studio where you can attend classes with her, whether you're in her neighborhood or not, because she has a virtual studio. So thank you so much for being our guest today, Mel.
Thank you, Ellen. I really appreciate it. And I wish everybody to feel good.
And thank you, listeners, for tuning into Herbally Yours, produced in the studios of 90.3 WHPC, Nassau Community College, Garden City, New York. For further information, email us at whpc@ncc.edu. This is your host, Ellen Kamhi at naturalnurse.com, inviting you to join us next week for another edition of Herbally Yours. Until then, stay healthy.